Hey everybody, good evening. I'm live and you'll see me in a minute. Meanwhile, I would ask you to enjoy this beautiful music in the background and hoping that this will take you to the vibes of where we're planning to travel, to the beautiful world of sometime 2500 years back. Hey everybody, and here I am with this amazing concept. And this concept just, I was inspired right few days before this auspicious day called WESAK to come and reintroduce you all to this great being who walked this planet many years back. Actually, to me it feels like he was here just maybe not many years back, but it's so nice to connect to this energies, and I'm so excited to connect to uh, his frequency is on the day of Vesak, on the upcoming full moon, where I'm also conducting a very powerful full moon meditation, the Buddha Purnima meditation. So, at all, you through listening to the stories, you feel inspired to connect to this being. You're welcome to join me for the full moon meditation, and we're planning to this full moon we're planning to clear those obstacles coming in the way, as there's so much shifting in the present time on the planet, astrologically, environmentally, and we who are already part of this earth, we also kind of experience the shifts emotionally, personally, in relationships, in our life in general, in our moods, and how we feel about our own self. And this would be a different uh, opportunity, a chance to perhaps tell ourselves and show ourselves with this higher force, with the higher blessings of Buddha on the day, to kind of create some shift, some um, transformation on the day that we have been looking for. If nothing, we all strive for happiness. We all want to be happy, and the one thing Buddha uh, went in search of, that was freedom from suffering. The one thing, and the entire path of all his teachings are based on how a human being can free himself from any kind of suffering. And the message that he spread, and what his disciples, including the great King Ashoka, what he spread was the message of inner peace. The path he followed after the great Kalinga War and the enlightenment he had after having met some of the Buddhist monks, uh, that is to, walk away from the violence towards inner peace. And the violence is not on the outside, the violence inside, the conflict inside. And in the present time, the present world, we all are in some or the other way in constant conflict, in constant war with our own self, with our mind, with our emotions. And well, with that, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Nirali Shah. I'm internationally certified practitioner, energy healer, life mentor, an art therapist, and I passionately love to work with those beings, those people, an age no bar. It could be a child, it could be a baby, and it could be an adult, an elderly who truly, truly want to have a better life, a happier life, a healthier life, and also who has this deepest knowing that I'm here for something more. I'm here with a purpose, and I would like to break free from my self-created bondages into something so that I can really add difference in people's lives in whichever way. Some people love to do for the environment, some people love to help people with the skills, to add skills, to guide them in whichever way, whichever is your purpose, whichever is the core of your heart is asking you to follow. I help you to kind of have that journey with more clarity, with more ease. And with that, let's begin the story of Lord Buddha. So before I start, I would like to mention that I also run this beautiful book club, which is called Philosopher's Stone Book Club, which is a one of its kind. And again, its purpose is to, uh, you know, kind of bring together the like-minded people whose idea is to evolve together. Um, uh, with the support of book, while reading book, while having questions about life, who consistently have existential question about self, about surrounding, about how the world is shifting. And we come together and we read different books every season, and I'm going to be announcing season 5 very very soon. And we kind of evolve with each book that we take. And why I wanted to mention this book, the reason is, um, last season, season 4, I we kind of worked with a book that talked about the spirit world. And that's exactly where I want to begin today's episode of Reintroducing Buddha. So once my teacher said, these different stages and different gods that we say, Tirthankaras and Chakravartis and Buddha and Krishna, these are all um, different higher frequencies, Mahavatars. These are all different higher frequencies to which we would like to give some name so that we can easily recognize this being, in a certain frequency. They kind of have a certain characteristics. And it's easier for us to call them by that name so that we can recognize them with ease that, we're talking about this energy frequency. So, how there is a prime minister, and then there is this cabinet who kind of decides where prime minister is required, or his presence is required to accomplish a certain task at certain time of his work as a prime minister. And they kind of go to him and they say, well, you're required in this country or in this state for such and such task. So, well, this is exactly how the spirit world functions too. So some 2500 years back, somewhere in the higher realms, in the different dimension, um, there is this group of spirit beings, and to whom we also call Devi, Devtas, deities. They kind of go to this higher being who has, worked upon him, like, he's worked on himself in many, many lifetime and has achieved a level, and he's very close to, uh, you know, completing his journey to free himself from any bondages, any karmas. So they go to him and they say, well, it's time for you to reincarnate on the earth. And while you go there, you have, you know what your task is: to inspire the world to, uh, you know, a different way of life, because they're forgetting. Every now and then we require somebody to whom we can look up to, who reminds us according to the time and stage uh, of, where we are, in which era we are, and how we can evolve, how we can transmute, transcend as a person in that era. So these beings ask him to reincarnate, and the soul. This is how, spirit world functions. This is how every soul on the earth is born. So, well, they first kind of, create a check on where they would like to be born, who will be their parents, which clan will support him to his work, to nourish him for his work, um, and which will be the best area, best country, or best region for him to come and work, from where he'll be able to, do build the greatest inspiration. And so, well, he comes on the earth energetically. He creates a check, and he decides to be born into um, a specific clan called Shakya clan. And in that time, uh, King Shuddhodana and Queen Maya were the king and queen of that kingdom, somewhere in the Nepal region. And Buddha, to this child who decides to be called as Buddha in the future, he arrives in the mother's womb. And when such beings arrive, not just the spirit world is happy, um, even the earth is very, very happy. And one of the other things that we generally discuss, and uh, have discussion and questions around, is how everything in the universe is sending us constant signs of, what we got to look at ourselves, and how, future is, it's like there is this phrase that says, coming events cast as shadows before. And, well, everything in the universe is telling us, what is going to happen around us, and how we can actually, in alignment with our being, our soul, really make good choices. And with the same law, the earth and the environment kind of rejoices just the energetic presence of the child in the womb. And with that, the mother Maya receives some dreams, some very weird, I would say, very weird dreams. And she continuously gets these dreams, and she says, uh, why these dreams, this, uh, what is the message? And dream interpretation has been a tradition, coming from ancient times, where people literally use dreams as a means of communication from higher realms, from subtle realms, to understand what's going on in their life or in the surrounding or for the earth or for the future. And so King Shuddhodana was a king who knew this. He kind of called upon some astrologers and some wise people from his kingdom and shared these dreams that his wife had and said, well, I want you to interpret these dreams and just tell us, what's going on. Why such dreams? They're so weird. And these wise people, they sit with their scriptures and charts, and then finally they describe to the King Shuddhodana that the child that is in Maya's womb, Queen Maya's womb, is one of those mightiest, very powerful being, and he will create a legacy of your clan. So, let's rejoice and celebrate his presence. And since then, everybody in the kingdom was eagerly waiting for the birth of this child. As the tradition says, the mothers are, supposed to travel to their maternal place to give birth to the baby. And so Maya, near her, her delivery time, she decided to travel to her mother's place as well, so that she's taken care of by her mother after the delivery, after whatever the complications and upheavals a mother goes through during and after the delivery. So as she's going in that time, obviously there are no cars and planes, so she was going in a palanquin with some hundreds of, servants. Now, as she's traveling in the middle of a beautiful, and rather I would say divine magical forest, the entire tour kind of, takes a little rest. And while the Queen Maya was resting under a sal tree, suddenly she gets this inclination, this idea that she might just be giving birth very soon. So instead of going to her mother's place in the middle of the beautiful forest under the sal tree, Queen Maya gave birth to this most celebrated divine being who was awaited, uh, his presence was awaited on the earth in a very, very long time. So, um, you know, um, this child is born, and there is this different energy, a different vibration, not just in the forest where he was born. There is a sense of peace and happiness just the moment he was born in all the people who were present during his birth time. But also something in the nature changes. It's like nature rejoices his presence, because the nature, the earth, and I would rather say it was Mother Earth who wanted to contribute in the birth of this child, uh, who was here to make difference on the planet, on the earth. And not just in the nature, uh, there were shamans in that time who could read the signs of the nature. The nature spoke to them, the wind, the elements, the water, the mountains spoke to them. And there is this one wise and very well known shaman who um, realized at the time of Buddha's birth that something, somebody greater, somebody divine has been born, and he somewhere knew there were some prophecies about such a birth, and he knew that he has to visit this child and bless him or see him. So uh, this side, some far away country, the shaman decides to walk all the way to Nepal. And on the other side, this little boy is, is welcomed back into his kingdom. King Shuddhodana and Queen Maya, they're so happy. The family is happy. The entire empire is happy. And in the meanwhile, the shaman reaches there and he demands to see this being, this child. Well, Shuddhodana and Maya definitely knew that this child is great, but they had uh, no much idea about how great his work will be. But as the shaman um, asks to see him, uh, and he predicts just by looking at his stars and his lines on his palms. He says this child could be a very mighty king, or he could be a great teacher, not just only um, to your kingdom, but to the entire world, not for just your era, for the centuries to come. He'll be remembered for a very, very, very long time. So I'm so grateful and so privileged to have seen this child, as I'm not going to be alive for a long period, and I'll not see him grow and I'll not see him do his work in that time. And saying that, the shaman leaves fulfilled and grateful. On the other side, King Shuddhodana's world was shaken. You know, like it's like when a parent is told that your child is not going to carry forward your legacy, he also may have a seed to do something else. Well, every parents feel, my child should add to the greatness of my work. He should spread my legacy further, and he should be a great king. So I wouldn't want him to be anything else but king. So again, King Shuddhodana invites all the great people and pandits and monks from his kingdom, and he, uh, leaves this matter in front of these people and says, uh, "Well, this is what this great prophet has talked about, and I don't want my child to be anything else but the king. So, what do you suggest? What do we do? How do we educate him? How do we raise him so that the only choice he has is to become king?" And again, and if you know how the kings are, you could not, deny, or you couldn't reject what he says, and you can overpower, what he's wishing for. So again, these people sit with the chart and they have this long discussions, and finally they come in front of Shuddhodana and says, "Well, you know, the child definitely does have the seeds of becoming either a great teacher or a great king, but you know it's how we raise the child will play a very important role. So let's bring the way we plan child's future, the way we decide to um, raise him, educate him, clothe him, the kind of interactions that we have with him, we have to be really, really careful. We have to be very mindful of what this child learns, what he speaks about, what he's made aware of about the world. If at all this child learns about any kind of a worldly suffering, there is a chance that he will leave the luxurious life. And also, let's make him so used to the luxuries of the world that there is no way for him to renounce, there is no way for him to step outside this great luxurious life. Let's make him so comfortable and let's give him all the materialistic happiness, so that he only way he knows is to break free from the suffering is um, the luxury of life. King Shuddhodana was very happy, he was very pleased, and he said, "Well done, guys. This is how I'm going to raise my child, my only son, and I'm going to make him the mightiest king, the greatest warrior, and he is going to spread my empire into different corners of the world, and all the kings of the planet of the earth are going to bow before my son." And so there is this entire different level of luxurious palace was built for Siddhartha. He was named Siddhartha, and uh, he was given nothing less than a grandeur uh, level of comfort. The dresses he wore, the food that he ate, the kind of friends he had, and in the slightest, he was not given any sort of education about religion, about poverty, about unhappiness of the world. No stories were told to him that talked about reincarnations and poverty and karma, or no way he was exposed to the side of the world where there was sickness and suffering and pain and difficulties of life. So his life was made super cool, super beautiful, comfortable, smooth, and they considered that he was happy and he's going to choose what the king Shuddhodana has decided him to choose. But deep down, deep inside, there was something this child knew was missing in his life. But well, in the next episode of the story, which is tomorrow, is where I will talk about um, what uh, is going to happen to this child. Well, you may be knowing this story, you may have heard of this story or read somewhere, but we're going to also include some unknown facts about Lord Buddha with each story. And today's unknown fact about Buddha is in one of his conversations with his disciples, Buddha said that I am not the first Buddha on the earth. There are thousands of Buddha who came before me, and there are thousands more who will come after me. I'm just one of that being in the present time for you all to show you a path to evolve, to break free from the suffering. So, at all, and I would like to include a little bit of travel also. So at all, you've been to that side of the world in Leh, in Ladakh, in Nepal. If you visit that part of the world, well, you will know there are caves and temples, Buddhist temples, uh, where they literally have uh, those ancient old uh, art on the walls that literally describe thousands of Buddhas that came before Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. And there is also a prophecy that says that next Buddha, and specifically believed by the Buddhist monks, uh, who are constantly studying and uh, are also in some way in connection through meditation through these energies, have uh, prophesied that the next Buddha to come would be called Maitreya Buddha. So, well, with that, I'm going to end today's episode of Reintroducing Buddha in my Buddha stories, and see you tomorrow, approximately around the same time. I hope that whenever you watch this live, you watch this story, you you will enjoy um, understanding, knowing Buddha in a little different manner. With that, take care. Bye bye.